Buenas. How you doing, Alberto? Unmute your microphone.
Feliz Domingo. Happy Sunday to you, Rafa, to everyone. How are you?
Happy Sundays.
How are you today?
I'm great. Happy to be here in my Zulu, my secret cave. I'm going to move the computer to a sunnier location. But in the meantime, yes, welcome all to Cinematic. Welcome to our Sunday Vermut to speak with some of the directors and to present you, discuss with you the program Gaze, Play, Dream, retrospective. We focus on experimental cinema across the globe.
Yeah, schedule or in terms of lineup, we start with Flor Alberti, no, Argentinian filmmaker based in Barcelona. We will continue with Claudio Caldini, big name, godfather of experimental cinema and Latin American cinema, Argentinian too, dialing from Buenos Aires. And we'll end up with Adriana Vila, Venezuelan-born, Barcelona-based filmmaker, which it will be a pre-recorded interview we did earlier this week. So looking forward, three big names, no? Three brilliant artists.
So, just to explain a bit the program, you have the chance to see 25 short films by 14 different directors all over Latin America and Spain, obviously. And we structure the program as a triptych. So Gaze looks at new ways of looking, at ways to use the traditional narrative on your benefit and take any liberties you want to do with it. Play is more what we will see then later in Flor Alberti's variations of Alice in Wonderland. Found footage, recovered footage, repurposed footage, ways to do things that weren't meant to be like that. I think Beatrice, our Italian guest this month, uses some family VHS tapes that she found to recreate a completely different thing. I don't know if she's in good terms with her family. I hope so. But that's the second one, Play, and then the last one, Dream, goes on the more poetic, pure experimentation with the moving image on areas where, as we will speak with Claudio Caldini later, the mechanics of the camera are part of it. The way the film is going to be projected is part of it. The happy accidents that happen when you do things that weren't meant to be done with cameras and expensive equipment are part of it. So
in many ways, Raf, no, we're departing, like, for those cinematicos, attending today or watching the program online, you'll find that it's slightly different than any other cinematic program. Sometimes we like to keep, like traditional fictions with creative documentaries with some experimental cinemas. In this occasion, obviously, it's a focus, it's a retrospective, a special program entirely of experimental cinema. So we depart from traditional storytelling and the traditional conception of what is a film. Do I need a story? Is a romance? Is a thriller? We just liberate from all these conventions to bring you a series of filmmakers. I think it's 14 filmmakers, 25 films, composing the triptych that you just described, Raf, that probably investigate some of the elemental, some of the basic elements of cinema, early days of cinema, from the chemical aspects of celluloid, of how you make films, playing with Super 8, 16 mil, 35 mil, different formats, to the issue of the projector and the projection and performance projections. So we go a little bit of that, but we go also a lot of people questioning, if this is moving image and everything started with photographies in movement. What is time in cinema? How blank spaces of shots of the projector of the whole process of making a film and showing a film can be integrated in the storytelling process, and a bunch of simple experiments to dive into color, textures, shapes, really dreamy, beautiful films, and even some, no, Raf, touching on new technology as well and how that integrates in a new reality of experimental cinema, no?
Flor Alberti is waiting, and we shouldn't let her wait any longer. Hold on a second. Yes. Hello, Flor. How you doing?
Hola, Flor.
Well, you talk in your interviews and about the cinema of appropriation, referring to the use of found footage in your pieces. But the concept of appropriation goes a lot farther, as you are mixing sometimes very intimate confessions from people that don't know each other and don't know they are being interviewed for a documentary. But your work kind of gives all those confessions a second life, a different opportunity. Can you tell us about your process and how it happens?
Sí, entendí bien porque se me corta un poco la comunicación, pero cómo trabajé estas piezas, creo, la pregunta iba en torno a eso, ¿no? La cuestión de la apropiación y...
El método que usas para hacer películas como las que ponemos, ¿no? De self-representation y el hecho de que las piezas que usas no se grabaron juntas, ¿no?
Vale.
Sino que las has encontrado.
Vale, perdón, es que te escuché como a trompicones y... bueno, en estas películas de Self-Exhibition, que es una serie, ¿no? Y en este programa se proyecta una de esas piezas. En realidad, la metodología, pero creo que es mi forma de trabajar muy errática y muy azarosa. I go on, Fiona. Yes. El método venía bastante dado también por las prestaciones de la plataforma, en el caso de estos trabajos de YouTube, estos trabajos que están hechos exclusivamente con vídeos de YouTube. Entonces, claro, yo, por ejemplo, descubría un vídeo y un montón de vídeos parecidos, ¿no? Y lo que me llamó la atención era como este fenómeno de autorrepresentación, ¿no? Estas maneras medio homogenizadas que vienen dadas por las redes sociales, en las que tenemos de mostrarnos, ¿no? De representarnos, esta forma de exhibir la intimidad en las redes, que era un poco el tema que me empezó a interesar cuando descubrí estos vídeos. Entonces fue un poco azaroso, digamos, como metodología, porque iba trabajando también a partir de los vídeos que los propios algoritmos de YouTube, digamos, me iban haciendo encontrar, ¿no? Y luego a nivel de montaje, creo que para todas las piezas de esta serie, que son 7, utilicé la lógica, más o menos, una lógica similar, que era la de todos estos vídeos son tutoriales, ¿no? Son vídeos confesionales, entonces guardaba la estructura de un vídeo, pero multiplicando, las menos respondían, se hacían las mismas preguntas, era gente como que se mostraba de la misma manera, ¿no? Que exponía su cuerpo de una manera similar. Entonces tomé como, digamos, la estructura de un vídeo, replicándola con muchas voces simultáneas, ¿no? De ahí todo este juego de la multipantalla, de la superposición de capas sonoras también, de diálogo, ¿no? Y entonces iba intentando construir un diálogo entre todos los distintos personajes, digamos, que iba encontrando, ¿no? Casi como si podría ser una persona, pero reflejada, ¿no? Como en estas múltiples pantallas, ¿no? Que no deja de ser, pues, esta idea de la lógica especular también de la pantalla de Internet, ¿no? Donde uno se muestra a sí mismo y se ve reflejado también en la imagen del otro, ¿no?
Flor, because you started to talk about this really exciting process, obviously, behind self-exhibitions, and somehow self-exhibitions was a process that you were working on, a project between 2012, 2015, no? And this process of homogenization or standardization of human attitudes and multiplication of it has even expanded. If you think on dancing and TikTok, or even sharing, routine in like Twitch or these new formats, no, like it completely multiplied since you did self-exhibitions. I don't know if that sparks new creative projects or not necessarily in you, or how you live in this whole process.
Sí, es completamente de acuerdo. Bueno, de hecho, yo creo que también como esta especie de homogenización, ¿no? En las formas de representación tiene que ver con, o sea, las redes sociales son eso, ¿no? Y las redes sociales nos empujan a hacer eso y funcionan con esta lógica, ¿no? Y con esta dinámica de tener que exponer tu vida y, ¿no? De tener que mostrar, de tener que hacer pasar todo por imágenes, y estas imágenes pues responden como siempre a esta lógica de la webcam, ¿no? De la cámara frontal, bueno, a una serie de una estética, digamos, la estética de redes sociales que viene dada al final por los medios técnicos. Pero sí, yo creo que ahora, bueno, yo estoy la verdad que un poco más desconectada de lo que estaba en su momento cuando hice este trabajo con toda esta proliferación de plataformas que efectivamente, ¿no? Es como si el abanico se hubiese desplegado, ¿no? Y cada vez hay más, bueno, cada vez hay como herramientas que permiten, ¿no? Como de darle una torsión más a esta dinámica de exposición de lo íntimo que es propia de las redes sociales, ¿no? Y de hecho bueno, yo hace tiempo que no exploro un poco el mundo de las redes para un trabajo de apropiación, así voy mirando más por curiosidad, ¿no? Me descargué TikTok como para ver cómo era este tipo de cosas, pero hay gente que está utilizando estas nuevas, gente que trabaja también desde la apropiación y que está explorando estas nuevas plataformas, haciendo cosas muy interesantes, ¿no? Como TikTok, justamente, Periscope, que son un poco como un paso más en todas estas como plataformas, herramientas de comunicación y herramientas de exposición de nosotros mismos.
Flor, on this idea of this perfect bridge between experimental and documentary where you move. Self-exhibitions was an exhibition in a way, or was done for an installation exhibition, but it was also obviously a film that went mainly through, no? It was a documentary that went to IDFA and documentary festivals. And it's very interesting, this idea of this process in appropriation, and this idea of spontaneity and truth that maybe connects with early days of documentary, Rouge, Mogen, and the faulty experiments of cinema verité, and the impossibility of getting like truth answers or spontaneous answers, no, in some of those films and in some of those experiments. And in your case, by stealing this, by taking this from, you know, candid bits in YouTube and etc., at times you get incredibly spontaneous and truth moments of these youngsters, you know, confessing or sharing moments and expressions, no?
Yes, thank you for the comparison. I'm flattered. Sí, yo creo que a mí lo que digamos, lo que me fascinó un poco cuando descubrí estos vídeos era, o sea, qué nuevas narrativas de nosotros mismos construimos en las redes, ¿no? Que podríamos decir que nuevas verdades muy entre comillas, ¿no? Tomando el término verdad muy entre comillas, o tomándolo en un sentido vago, no académico, ¿no? Pero qué verdades construimos o proyectamos sobre nosotros mismos en las redes que se han convertido en definitiva en un soporte de construcción del yo, ¿no? En un soporte de construcción de la subjetividad.
That's very good. And then, well, as we say in the program, we have films that using any other technique available to create a film. And just wanted to ask you, where do you feel better, or where do you feel more at home, with analog systems, with digital systems, or just using the internet, YouTube, whatever it is, as another way to capture the footage you use in your films?
Mm-hmm. I think I'm very... no, lo voy a decir en español. Para trabarme menos. Yo creo que tengo bastante curiosidad en general por diferentes soportes de trabajo, métodos de trabajo, etcétera, lo cual hace que muchas veces sienta que me intereso por algo, lo pruebo y ya lo termino y le venga ya otra cosa, ¿no? Creo que hace que me cuesta un poco a veces profundizar en ciertas cuestiones, pero sí que es cierto que hace tiempo me había empezado, digamos que mi aproximación al cine de apropiación vino más, creo, por el analógico, porque me empecé a interesar por el trabajo de reciclaje de película y demás. Luego pasé al digital, porque empecé a sentir curiosidad por lo que estaba pasando en el mundo digital. Ahora estoy trabajando un poco de vuelta en película en mis tiempos libres, cuando logro tener un poco de tiempo fuera del trabajo, porque es extremadamente laborioso. Creo que por una cuestión de hábito me siento más cómoda trabajando con el material digital, porque es también lo que hago en el día a día, ¿no? Como trabajo como montadora, pues al final trabajo en digital, y es cierto que en el mundo del celuloide soy un poco novata y voy un poco más dando palos de ciego, ¿no? Pero es cierto que también me apasiona el celuloide y me apasiona la película, aunque es un soporte que evidentemente controlo muchísimo menos, pero tengo esta especie de nostalgia del celuloide también.
We see this, no, in also the work of friends like Bego Vicario, also the taking of classic Disney myths, particularly connecting to the next question, maybe to make a statement on gender representation, which is something that we see also in these two films that we selected for the program. So something that connects them is to repurpose material, to rethink images, to make us think and question gender roles and how genders are represented in film and felt. I don't know if you could tell us a bit more about this thing that goes through your filmography and this need to rethink and re-question gender.
Yeah, well, I think creo que atraviesa buena parte de mis trabajos, porque es porque es un cuestionamiento que para mí siempre no, pero desde hace un tiempo de mi vida es un cuestionamiento que digamos, hace parte de mí, de mi manera de pensar y de ver el mundo y de ver las cosas, ¿no? Entonces, creo que en el momento en el que empiezas a plantearte esas preguntas, digamos, de manera real y profunda, es un poco difícil deshacerte de ellas, ¿no? Sobre todo en lo que respecta a la producción de imágenes, al consumo de imágenes, ¿no? Porque el 95%, bueno, es un porcentaje que digo hacia el azar, ¿no? Pero de imágenes que se producen están atravesadas por esos modelos heteropatriarcales, ¿no? De producción del género. Entonces, evidentemente no significa que solo trabaje en torno de eso, ¿no? Y a veces soy capaz de poner también de lado estos cuestionamientos para trabajar otras cosas, pero es cierto que es, sí, por lo menos en la mayoría, creo, de trabajos así de apropiación que he hecho, creo que siempre ha sido el motor principal, digamos, sí, el motor principal de sus trabajos. Sí.
I don't want to steal more of Flor's Sunday, time. So that's all for me. Just a real pleasure to have you here and to watch, to show your work dwelling on all these ideas on the public and private space and intimacy and how we share gender roles. Like it's very, very exciting to share these two films in this program, Flor.
No, thanks to you. Thanks for screening the films and for the conversation. I'm sorry for that. The connection was really bad, but well, thanks a lot to you for inviting me.
So thank you very much, Flor, and I'm sure we will talk again in the future. Hopefully, yes, here in Scotland, with a pint of something strong in the hands.
In a sunny Scottish day.
That day of the year.
And we keep in Argentina. We have an amazing guest coming in. Claudio, I'll let you in. Let me just see. Hello, Claudio Caldini.
Hola, Claudio. Bienvenido, Claudio. ¿Qué mal lo hemos pasado hoy?
Gracias. Gracias. Bueno, encantado de estar aquí.
I'm going to just say a few lines of Claudio Caldini for those who maybe are not familiar with your figure. But Claudio Caldini is an experimental filmmaker, is a musician, is a camera operator, is a projectionist, a teacher, and a performer. His work spans from the 1970s till today, always favoring analog formats to support his creations. Claudio is the very first old-school vanguardist and a global name of reference for the new generation of experimental filmmakers.
Claudio, in your filmography in general, seems like sound, in your films, it seems like sound is a very important part of it. And in this case, we chose only one film, which feels obviously like with the rest of filmmakers, we're talking about filmmakers with a vast filmography, rich, complex, needs to be digested properly. And we just gave a small tapa, small appetizer to your work. In this case, it's Gamelan or Gamelan, and we were wondering. It seems like a film where both the Claudio Caldini musician and filmmaker are working together and are in tension, and we don't know who came first in the case of this project, how the spark and the initial and the inception of this film was, if it was more closer to the musician or to the filmmaker.
Well, I would like to say that the title of these films, Gamelan, it was a mistake, because at that time I was interested in Asian music. I had a film first that was about Indian music, and I want to follow this line, but the relationship of this music, the Balinese Gamelan, with my film is completely indirect. If I have to make this film today, the title will be Radio or Tangent or Orbit, because it is much related to the process of the making of the film. So the music in this film is not Gamelan at all. It is a piece by Steve Reich that he in his compositions, in some of his early compositions, have certain principles of Gamelan music applied to them. But I think that was a mistake about this film to title Gamelan. It does not mean that the film is musical, it's very musical. And it is more related to dance than to music, because in the process of making the film, all the body was implicated. It was almost a gesture film, even if it is a description of a landscape. And another similarity to music is that it is divided in sections. It is divided in sections. Each reel of Super 8 is a section in a different part of landscape, and they have a different visual results. And what I discovered after the shooting, when I have the processed material, was that in certain parts of the footage, when the camera was approaching the soil, and certain texture was there with stones, leaves, or there was some certain texture, and the speed of the camera produces the effect of the stroboscopic movement. That means that it seems that the movement go backwards, that it's not real. And this is the only relation that can be established with some of the Steve Reich music that is called phase shifting. Phase shifting is when two lines of percussion, for instance, are becoming together, and it seems that the metric of one is slightly smaller to the other, so it seems that one is taking advantage of the other. And you know, it's something like one is, en castellano decimos, una se está adelantando o retrasando con respecto a la otra. Esto sucede por la diferencia de métrica entre unas y otras. Bueno, a partir de esto yo descubrí que hay una analogía entre lo que en música se llama phase shifting, o sea, cambio de fase, con el fenómeno visual del movimiento estroboscópico. El movimiento estroboscópico que todos lo debemos haber experimentado alguna vez, cuando, por ejemplo, las ruedas de un carro o de un molino parece que se detienen o empiezan a girar en la dirección contraria. Esto pasó en la película, pero con todo el movimiento. Y sucede en algunas breves, diría, partes del film.
Talking about the possibilities with a Super 8 camera, the medium, all this material, all the film itself, the emulsions, they come across in your films, and that might be a regular thing in every one of them. But they do come across as very poetic. You get these kind of beautiful effects, like in Gamelan, like in many other films. And at the same time, they look very contemporary. That's what got me to call you the old school vanguardist. It's a bit of a paradox that you use ancient, well, they're not ancient as in the Greeks, but old ways to film to get something that looks so fresh and contemporary, or vanguardist even. What is the key for that outcome?
Well, thank you, Rafa, but I think that the opposite is also true. All contemporary films made in film are looking old. That is what happens for me.
It looks like they have been made before, no?
Yes, it is. Super 8 is like a time machine in automatic running. because the thing of the times is digital. So
Well,
as soon as you are using Super 8, you look like the 70s.
Well, I'm not sure I can agree with you on that. I mean, certainly the texture and the way a Super 8 film comes is recognizable, and then it will bring memories of family films or old footage. But in particular, in Gamelan, I'm thinking as well of El Nano en mi Jardín, and lo que he podido ver, what I could find online of your work, it is contemporary. It is solutions that other filmmakers are with much bigger budgets are trying to find for their films, on the way to transmit this kind of, create this emotion, this illusion, trigger the imagination of a viewer. And despite the old equipment, I think it's very modern. It's very fresh. It doesn't look outdated.
Well, thank you. I wanted always to make something new in each film. And at that time, speaking about the film emulsions, Gamelan, for instance, was made in a Plus X film by Kodak that is no more in the market. It was discontinued about 10 years ago, I don't remember, but it was a low sensibility film that have a lot of scale of grays and very plain black density in the result of the emulsion. And this film is not more in the market. The same with Kodachrome or the first Ektachrome, and we have no more that emulsions in the market today. So we have now negative. The negative is very good. The color negative is excellent, but all these reversal emulsions are not as good as they were in the 70s and 80s. So the visual results are not so good now that as was in the 70s for reversal film. That it's mainly what I am using for performance, because I am using the camera originals for film performance with expanded projections and with 3 or more projectors at the same time.
I wanted to comment on that. I'm sorry, Alberto, I think I'm jumping on your question. But one thing I've noticed, I heard you speaking with other people around the years, and it's the first case I find of a filmmaker who is thinking on the final output, on the projection time of his film from the outset. So I can understand when you're thinking of a film, many ideas come into it, then you come with the music, with other. But it's the first time I see the film of somebody who has been thinking on how he's going to show that film to the audience. Is that the case?
Well, yes. When I think in filmmaking, I think in projection, because the film is complete when you are screening to the people. So, sorry, to think about the film is to think about the moment in which you are screening to the people with more than one spectator there. So when I made this film, Gamelan, I knew that it will be a very difficult experience for the public, and it was. And it was in this 1981 in the mostly amateur media of Buenos Aires at that time. It was almost a nightmare to screen this film to the people. It was rejected as completely. The people was shouting and beating their feet on the floor because they didn't like that. Why are you doing this?
So added experience.
Yes, and it was a big community of amateur filmmakers, and not even they understand it. Only a person that was in the jury and was a dancer said that is the film, the only film that is interested to me. So it was a great consuelo, how do you say that in English?
Relief, no?
Relief. It was a relief that she said that. And I want to say also, because maybe some experimental filmmakers today are familiar with the classic filmmaking of the work of filmmakers like Michael Snow, that I didn't know nothing about La Región Central at that time. That is maybe a similar idea of rotating camera circulating in a mountain landscape. So I had the opportunity of screening the film in Canada, in Toronto, and Michael Snow was there, and I say, well, I apologize, I really didn't know nothing about this film. Si hubiese sabido que este film existía y cómo era, no hubiese hecho esta película. Sí, y ese es uno de los secretos de por qué los films que yo hago a veces parecen, como tú dices, Rafa, parecen nuevos o vanguardistas o diferentes. Es que yo creo que la película que estoy haciendo no corresponde a nada que haya sido hecho antes. Trato de rechazar cualquier idea preconcebida, ¿sí? Porque si alguien lo hizo antes, no es necesario que yo vuelva a hacerlo.
Thank you very much, Claudio, for giving us a bit of your time. It will continue. I'm determined that we will show your films over here. And yes, we have now the interview with Adriana Vila, another one that wants to make wrong all the forecasts for Super 8 using it. I don't know, Alberto, you have a last question, or you want to leave it there?
No. I'll just once again be very thankful for Claudio for sharing a little bit of the Sunday morning with us. It's been a massive pleasure.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Un placer estar con ustedes y hasta la próxima.
Hasta la próxima.
Hasta la próxima, Claudio.
Adiós.
We have one more guest, Adriana Vila Guevara. She does have a couple of films in our program. We pre-recorded this interview last week. I don't know when. Thursday.
We're not wearing the same clothes, no, Rafa? It's going to be obvious.
It's going to be obvious. You just said it from the outset.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to this part of the Cinematic Vermut today. It's a pre-recorded session with Adriana Vila Guevara. We are extremely excited to be with Adriana today. Adriana is a Venezuelan filmmaker, artist, and anthropologist based in Barcelona. Her work moves between the realms of confessional ethnographic studies and film experimentation using different formats: video, Super 8, 16mm, and exhibition forms, projection, performance, and installation. And she covers so much that we're gonna try to, in 30 minutes, we chat, cover the films that you have in the program, which is just the tip of the iceberg, to get to know more the work of Adriana. Welcome, Adriana.
Pleasure.
How are you? Where are you?
Cinematic.
Great. Thank you very much.
What a lovely setting you have. Where are you today?
Yes, this is my little lab. You can see.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's my lab and also my studio. So here I spend a good amount of time during the day and nights. My little dark room also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. We like to start, Nora, from the beginning. We like to start from the start, and maybe for those not so aware with your work, maybe let us know a little bit, Adriana, how you get into cinema, into moving image. You're a trained anthropologist. What came first, anthropology, movies, same time, simultaneously? How was that process of approaching moving pictures, moving image?
Well, it was. It wasn't a goal itself. No, it was I started actually in literature, even before I started in science, and then I got into literature. I think it was also wanting to absorb many things at the same time. And while I was studying anthropology in Barcelona, after doing humanidades here, I was studying actually in the building right in front of CCCB, and the contemporary
Center for Contemporary Arts Barcelona.
Contemporánea de Barcelona. And it was the moment when the aula eccentric started, and this was really, I think, the turning point, or actually what absorbed me, was to have the opportunity to start to assist to these courses dedicated to experimental cinema. But profoundly, no, it was a continuous course. So it wasn't just like one little course, but a continuous course. So it actually became a sort of master in experimental cinema. And I connected immediately, you know, it was, I had also a background related to performative arts, and I was doing a bit of contemporary dance in Venezuela, and also very related also to poetry slams, and also to even other artistic environments. And it was all actually getting together, no, in experimental cinema. It was like finding their the poetic approach to what was being able also to be captured, but also performed and related to the arts in general. When I was doing this, I inherited a lot of Super 8 and 16mm films, and also some projectors. And from that, I suddenly had in my hands all this material, and being able to relate with these gazes, and also with these lives, unknown lives. So it was pretty anthropological on one side, and on another side, it was the materiality of cinema, and connecting with that in my hands, and being able to project and also connect with the instruments, you know, itself. And so that started a path that connected also with who was my companion during a long period of time, and with whom I actually started all this. That was Luis Macia. And we started our first piece that was an expanded home movie piece that took us around the world, and made me also connect with other filmmakers, with other people working, exploring all these this material and these ways of making film. For me, it was the school. It was actually, that was the school. It was getting to know like all these mothers and fathers of experimental cinema, and getting to show them what I was just starting to do, and have all these feedbacks and exchanges and discussions, and also it was related to what I was also interested in anthropology, because it is the context, you know, of what, and the people also behind these films. I'm very interested in that, in what's going on also behind, no? And so that was also a way of learning a lot, and then coming back here and wanting to share that. You know? So that was the beginning also of Crater Lab, the idea of opening a little space to share what we had been learning, because it started with found footage, but then we went into filming, and then we went into processing, and then from black and white processing into color processing, and then into copying, and then into optical printing. And then now it's like one thing took us to a next step, because it also, like, working with this, I don't feel like finding one language and then sticking into that language. No, it's more like wanting always to get out of the comfort zone and to learn something new. And so that was taking me all the time into new techniques or into new forms, and always like sort of work in progress. You know, with each piece was a new exploration. And yeah, so this was mainly the beginning. I don't know if it was
totally, and it's great to see that those connections with people, with places, with specific programs like etc.
It's easy to get carried on with when you start discovering how people made films before the digital era. But I mean, your origins are there, but your career has gone now for a few years, and you have made a number of pieces. You have made a couple of feature films. The last one was Belén. We would like to ask you, how do you choose the subject of your films? How you get to determine and to have clear what you want to say in your films?
Well, Belén was actually my first and my only feature film. I only have one, and it's I mention it because it was so complex. To I think that was another school, no, but especially into the industrial forms of making film and accessing also to structures and to resources and to working with a lot more people and so that was a particular school. And after I finished it, I was so exhausted that I decided I wanted to get back into making my little films that actually I can hold in my hand now. But the subject of Belén came through my master's in anthropology that I did. Focused on memory and representation in Afro-Venezuelan identity, and particularly with this group of women drummers, where Belén was one of the main representations of these empowered women. This was like a very strong subject, and it was a film, a very particular film in what I have been actually doing in my creative field, because this was a very engaged film, and that I took with a lot of responsibility, because it was related to all this engagement also with the people behind the film. The subject of my other films sort of pop up, no? And depending on what maybe I'm reading, or maybe just what I'm looking at, you know, or what can come into my life as a sort of revelation, or just a surprise, or a question, no? So they are all coming from different places, and it does have to do with my position towards the world. No, it does have to do with how I am sitting here and relating, no? And how I relate with the world. It puts me in a place where I am sensible to what is going on around me, or not, not always, no, but depending on that, I receive. No, it's sort of like, am I able to receive this or that, and depending on how it comes in front, then I take it.
Mm-hmm. And since we have Adriana, these two pieces, which feel like, you know, like a wee tapa, like a wee aperitif to you know, the vast of your work, and how deep and complex and rich it is. We gave the audience the chance to approach your work with two short films back then, Intertropical, Visión. Somehow they feel like both have an element of playfulness, like you know, two small experiments, small beautiful experiments. One kind of expanding to nature motifs, the other one sheltering to the home. I don't know if you could tell us a bit. We actually think that they work very nicely together. I don't know if you could tell us a bit more about these small pieces, these two pieces that we chose for the program.
Well, it's very nice that you chose both of them, because Gamelan is I'm actually very happy to know that it is being screened in this program, because it's a little piece that I've never given much consideration. Actually, it was a little piece that I mean consideration not in the way it was made or what it meant for me when I made it, because it was really special to make. But it was there like something that was made for this group of musicians of Seward that actually it's 10 years now that they are playing together, and I have been doing other collaborations with them after that. But in particular, this one was a moment where they invited me to the recording of one of their first discs, no? And it was a 3-day immersion in this beautiful old house studio, sound studio in the middle of the countryside. And it was a 3-day immersion of observation from the inside of a band conceiving their pieces, that most of them are pieces that have a big space for improvisation also. So it was like being a testimony of moments of inspiration, or even very complex moments of how negotiation in music can be taken. No? So this was going on, and I was actually recording with a video camera pieces of all that, and doing a sort of in-camera editing with the video camera. That at the end of these sessions, I just put them on the computer, one clip after the other one, and showed them what I had recorded. It was like at the end of all the sessions, and they were amazed. They cried because it was like a compact, registration documentation of what was going on there. And I took with me what I had very quickly. That was just one Super 8 cartridge in my little Super 8 camera. And in one of the moments of pause of this immersion, that they needed actually to stop because it had become super intense, all the creative process. Well, we decided to give that space to silence. So I wasn't recording what they were playing, but it was a moment where the group was just in different spaces of the house being silent. And the only sound was the Super 8 going on, no? And I was just filming these little captures of the house, and what also I felt the house was not only breathing in that moment, but sort of showing of a sort of past that was coming in relation to them. And then the outside was a sort of blurry world. It was like the clear world was going on inside them, and the blurry world was outside. No? So that it was all sort of in camera editing. Then I did a little editing afterwards, of a bit of the speed and some other things. So this piece takes also the sounds that were like a bonus track in their LP, and it was like all those really gamey, playful moments for them, and it was a playful moment for me in making it also. So that's what it is. It's a conjunction of those two things. And in the case of Intertropical Vision, it's a lot more structural. It has a lot more intention behind it. It was a film that I thought a lot about it when I was filming it. I did a lot of playing also with the object that I used was this Olafur Eliasson's viewing machine that is in the middle of Inhotim in Belo Horizonte. And so I did a lot of testing with it, and it's this huge kaleidoscope, in the middle of nature. And so I played a lot with it before I filmed, and it was having that moment also of playfulness that suddenly got into a sort of trance. It was how the multiple, plural, non-centric observation, contemplation, and joyfulness can also take you into sort of trance. And I was in a moment where I was thinking a lot about from where we are doing this exercise of observation or acquiring a certain knowledge of what we look at, and especially in this first world where there's a lot of the colonialism of not only the vision, but what it is supposed to be, And so I was thinking a lot about this, also related, of course, to anthropology and the participant observation techniques and what we are producing from that. And so it's a piece that does depart from a playful starting point, but it develops into something else without being explicitly an explanation of that or a critic to that, but more being sort of invitation, into an invitation into. And then depending on who is on the other side, well, it can happen in one way or in another, And also, it is a piece, and I work a lot on the phenomenological aspect of the screening, the projection, and how it is received on the other side. So it is different, of course, if it's screened in 16. It's a piece that also it's finished in 16 and with optical sound, and of course that experience is pretty different from seeing it on a screen, on a little screen. But well, we do our best in the middle of all this.
We were really curious about the viewing machine by Olafur Eliasson.
Yes.
And then we discovered he's a well-known kind of sculpture or environmental sculpture, outdoor sculpture. I got to see some of his pieces, so it's great. But you mentioned the music in both films. We had this feeling that the music was the way you use the music in your films was the most standard or most standard. I think we have huge contracts with how experimental is the image in your films. That the music follows a pattern, almost like a wave, bringing you up and down, and the silence, and then music again. It's almost like the points of inflection in a standard script to develop the trajectory of the character, no? But obviously there's no characters.
This is curious. I know you talk about this curve, these, but for me it's very curious also to think about it as a standard sort of a way of relating to music, because I don't know, it's maybe the proposal of these two pieces are in a sort of starting point that then goes into un pico. How do you say?
Trance. No, and you mentioned trance earlier, Adriana.
Yeah.
It's a very good term. It kind of takes you to a trance.
Yeah.
What I mean, if we were on a standard script, there's obviously the introduction of the scene, what's going on, a reality, then something happens that breaks that reality, and the character obviously is going up and down, struggling to arrive in another reality. At some point, he seems like he's not gonna manage. Obviously, this doesn't apply to any of your films because they are completely a different realm. But the music gave me that feeling. It gave me that feeling that at some point I was reaching a point, and then silence, and the image keeps going. I thought, gosh, this is kind of bringing me to this kind of three-part storytelling that the Greeks invented 3,000 years ago.
That's super interesting.
But I've been known for seeing and hearing things where nobody sees and hears it. So you have to be right to tell me that.
It's interesting because it is a sort of demonstration of, one on the aspect of what one doesn't really know that you can produce in the creation of these pieces, but especially in the fact that Intertropical Vision does search for this structure. It is actually internally, it has many chapters, that in the also in-camera editing process, I was working on this structure, and the structure is rhythm. The structure is visually a certain rhythm, and how can that take the audience or a spectator into already relating to something that has sort of hilo conductor. And in the case of Intertropical Vision, I worked with the piece of Alfredo Costa Monteiro that I worked with him for a long time, and I really connect with his sound work. He's a sound artist. Actually, he's a multidisciplinary artist, and has been focusing mainly on sound. And one of the things that I really like of his work is that he works with vibrations, and how on this piece and other many pieces, I work with the vibration of light, and how the spectator can sometimes create an image that isn't actually there, or that I haven't proposed, but in the relation with these intermittents, or with the abstractions that are created, the brain can start also creating, and that is a singular brain that is creating. So each singular brain can create different things that aren't on the screen. And Alfredo works with that, with sound. He works with the creation, the physical creation of a sound that actually isn't there, and departing from all this work with vibrations, and also with a live dimension that is especially interesting for me. So he works with electroacoustics, so it's also an analog way of creating the sound. And this is these are fragments of Insula, that was a recorded concert that Alfredo made. I believe it's a piece that its duration is around 40-45 minutes. So these are fragments from that piece, and that are organized into creating this increscendo, and that are part of that sort of invitation that doesn't leave you in the top. It brings you back.
It brings you back very nicely.
Yeah, so it does go back down. Mm-hmm.
And it feels, Adriana, correct me, I can hear a bit of echo. I don't know if you can hear me. I get some echo myself.
Yeah, no, I hear you well.
All right. Just the last question on Intertropical. It kind of feels like there's obviously an element of, or nature, or a layer where you're making a statement about nature, or a question, or inviting us into a journey to the nature. But obviously starts with harmony, and sounds of the jungle or nature. And it goes to a zenith, we were saying a trance, a zenith, that is rich, with, it feels like more industrial, mechanic sounds, that evolution of sound to get back to silence and harmony and end in that way. I don't know if that dichotomy, city, nature, rural, city, nature, industrial or mechanic, was there, or is something we just came
Well,
up with?
I didn't imagine it as industrial or mechanic. I think it was more the taking to extremes or to its limits, what can start being like really small, simple sounds of nature transformed into or taking into its limits. No, and what happens with those limits is that they can actually explode in our ears if we are not capable of reducing them in our inside somehow. And of course, it is. It's not a comfortable sensation, no. So it is still linking with the nature, because the nature is there and the nature can sort of talk somehow. I don't want to explain too much because I also want to, I prefer to leave it a bit open and leave each one also to have his or her own connection with it. But nature is, of course, the center, no? And how nature can speak, how nature can speak also through that image and that sound is not always in a harmonic mood, no? So maybe we're just wanting nature to be the shoulder all the time, where we want to lean on and solve our external and internal problems. And maybe nature can reveal, no, and just say, hey, this is another thing, and it's sort of an exploration around that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's a real pleasure to speak with you. I recommend everyone to investigate, do your searches and Vimeos in Googles and find more materials from Adriana Vila, Guevara. And really, we tend to say this to our guests, but never as meaning it as strong. Like, I really would like you to present the next film here in Edinburgh with us.
Thank you.
And it will happen. It will happen one of these days.
Film, a performance. We're dying to play together,
Yes.
to be able to play and be in a room together. So.
Whenever it's possible, I'll just jump in.